welcome to Mom Talk, the talk show for moms. I'm your host, Kyle-Lefebvre, and I'm with my two co-hosts, Becca Lewis and Heather Fox. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
So today we're talking about what to do when our child experiences big feelings and emotion with Deborah MacNamara. Deborah is a clinical counselor, an author, and she is on faculty at Neufeld Institute. Hi, Deborah. Welcome again.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, let's dive in, and we're happy to have you. So what are we going to talk about today is definitely a topic that I think we hear a lot about: big emotion, big feelings. I feel there are buzzwords. We hear about this a lot. So let's do it. So what do we do when our child experiences big feelings and emotions?
Yes, well, this is the actually $10 million question. Um, First of all, what is an emotion? An emotion is a chemical, physical, biological response in a child uh, as a result, and in us as well, as a result to some sort of sensory stimuli, internally, externally. Your emotions are messengers of information to the brain that something is going on in your environment. Um, the brain's job is to sort through those emotions, the ones that are most important, and then give a name to them. And that's what we call feelings. So emotions or feelings are different. Emotions and feelings are different. They're not the same. Feelings are the words that we give to the arousal that we have in our body. So why are all mammal species built with a sophisticated emotional system? It's a good question. Because it's a communication system. It's a communication system that doesn't rely on words, which is much more sophisticated and would require a lot of development. Think about how your children's words unfold. We'd be waiting a long time if we didn't have an emotional system to try to make sense of what their cries meant, their temper tantrums meant, their clinginess meant. Their emotions are communicating messages. Emotions are not problems. They're trying to solve them. So first of all, how we look at emotion really matters, because if we see that as a communication in our child, then what we do is from that place. My child is trying, something's not working for my child. It might have nothing to do with what you're doing. It's just what's in their environment or inside of them. They might be getting sick, hungry, tired, whatever it is. And so the first thing that we need to do is pay attention. Pay attention. What's going on? Okay, you've got my system on alert now. How do I make sense of this? You might not figure it all out in the moment, but we do oftentimes have to make a response in the moment, especially if some of the behavior is egregious or difficult, and so part of it is responding to the child, but also giving yourself some time to think, okay, what's stirring them up? What do they need? For sure, they will need contact and closeness. It doesn't mean you put yourself in harm's way, or you don't put yourself in the line of fire. You might need to, take some stuff away from them, but they need contact and closeness. I'm here, you're, big feelings, you're having a hard time. You might need to name those feelings. They just probably need to express them. And that's true of most emotions that are coming out of us, is they need some sort of safe expression. And so kids 0 to 3 will have some sort of physical or grunts and growls and kicks and hits. And some of you have biters. Ooh, biting so hard. Nobody likes to be bit, especially other children. So that's difficult, but they'll have some sort of physical manifestation. But by 3 and 4, they'll have some sort of verbal manifestation. I hate you, poo-poo face. You're not my mom anymore. You're bad, whatever it is. I don't love you. You're not invited to my birthday party. There's all sorts of things kids can say. And so it takes a verbal turn at age 4. And then by age 5 to 7, they have a little bit more tempering and self-control, hopefully, if brain development's unfolding well. And then they'll be able to probably find their words a little bit more. They might not react as poorly. But this whole span, especially in the first 7 years of life, they're very untempered. They can switch between emotions really quickly. They can have a whole range of emotions. Some of them might be very problematic. Some of them aren't. So what do we do when our kids have emotions? We hold on like you do in a roller coaster, and you do no harm, and you don't add to it. You don't make it worse. Like, oh, I see you're frustrated, so let me take away your iPad now. Okay, that might make them a little bit more frustrated, or I don't want to be with you more, or I'm done with you. Okay, well, that will increase the emotional problem as well. So big feelings are messages. How do we pay attention to it? How do we lead through it? How do we not create more problems as a result of it? And how do we also be patient and wait and guide maturity along? Because there's a natural answer that's coming down the road here. So how do we get there is the other part of that question.
Wow. Yeah, there's so many questions when that's happening. When the emotions are so big and you have such big feelings and everything, you know, I'm hearing you that to kind of stay calm and be patient, but how can we respond to our kids, and how do we show up for our kids during those times? Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, I think what I would offer is some just ways to look at it. And you're right, when they are stirred up, and the bigger they are stirred up, it's you don't always know. You can be blindsided. You might think everyone's having a great day. You're getting out the door to work, and boom, something just comes out of the blue. So, excuse me, it is tricky, right? And there's no magic to this. If it were easy, we wouldn't keep talking about it because we would have solved it. So it is difficult, and I think we have to be patient with that. And to be patient with ourselves. But I mean, the general idea here is that emotion seeks expression. It needs to come out. So the more you say, cut it out, be calm. I can't handle that. You're not allowed to feel that way. Think positive. What you're essentially saying is don't have an emotion, which makes the emotion bigger because it has to get louder to communicate the message. So first thing out of the gate, some form of expression that is appropriate to the situation without repercussion to the relationships, particularly yours. If our big job is not to take everything so personally. Don't have to make everything a teaching moment. The first time my daughter said she didn't love me, I don't have to believe that. I'm not going to take that to heart. I don't need to remind her about everything I do for her. I mean, it's just like, okay, that's where we're at. You're frustrated. So that's the second part of it, is acknowledge it, allow for the expression. Don't try to clam that up. If you do, you're going to create a bigger situation. If they're in a restaurant and they decide this is the time they're upset, their emotional system, maybe you need to leave. Maybe you need to, no, this isn't working. I'm going to take you. We'll go for a walk. We'll come back. Don't worry. You'll get your food. But no, we're not going to do this here. Maybe you have to, take a bit of a breather from the birthday party. Maybe you have to do some of those things to allow for some safe expression, some emotion. Change it up a little bit. But the idea I can't be with you is really problematic. The idea that I can't handle you is really problematic. So that would be the really key thing for parents. Expression, but no repercussion to your relationship. Figure out how you're going to do that. I love what Gordon Neufeld says, think of emotions kind of like as toilet training. You get to figure where, when they need to come out, and so I see you got it. You got it. Hold it. Okay. We're over here. Okay. Found the bathroom. Woo. All right. Okay. And sometimes you're like running because you've got to get there quickly. But think of it that way, right? We don't say to the body, I'm going to give you a sticker if you don't go to the bathroom, like hold it. Don't ever let it come out. You're going to have a massive explosion. It doesn't work that way. So allow for the expression, make room for it, make it safe. And if you want to acknowledge it, what you see, the emotion that you see, you're frustrated, you're upset, you didn't get your way, communicate to the child that you get it. But don't be under any illusion that will stop it, or that will, oh, now finally my parent understands. I don't have to be so frustrated. That will not probably happen. But what it does communicate to the child is that you see and you've heard the message. Right? Like when you say to someone, are you listening to me? Did you hear what I say? Because you're looking for some feedback. So when you say, I see you're frustrated. Okay. Thank you. Message has been communicated. We're trying to decrease it through expression and then coming alongside and supporting it. And then, as we may need to talk about it later, we're waiting for brain development to happen here. We're waiting for the child to understand their own emotions. Emotional development is as sophisticated as cognitive development. You don't expect a child who's first learning a sound to then be able to do sentences and write their own story. We've got a whole trajectory here, and it starts with expression, making room, giving it a name, and providing good conditions so that brain can grow in its capacity for self-control.
Awesome. So I know this seems like a big question, but can you tell us a little bit about what's actually happening in the child's brain when they're having those big feelings?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the simplest way to look at it is, and Dan Siegel talks about the flip lid or whatever, but essentially, all mammal species have an emotional part of the brain, an instinctive part of the brain. And the prefrontal cortex, the part right up in here that you probably feel is really tired at the end of the day when you've had to multitask and just, deal with 100 people's, emotions and remember to pick up broccoli on the way home. And like your prefrontal cortex is tired. Like, don't ask me another question, because this is the part of the brain that does all that, impulse control, thinking things through, not reacting right away. And so what's happening in a child's brain under the 5 to 6 years of age is that that part of the brain is not fully developed. So they oftentimes are acting out of instinct and out of impulse and out of emotion. It's primal, right? It's like any other mammal species, right? Like your dog, cat, horse, whatever it might be. My dogs have had, how many deliveries have we had to the front door for Amazon? Have they ever yet in their 7 years of life ever been killed by anyone or hurt by anyone who's come to the front door? The answer is no. And yet the action is primal and it's still the same. They don't have a prefrontal cortex. But we do. So there's that growth that happens that knits together the emotions, and so the learning happens. So it's just that, okay. And so you've got this reflective capacity. So you want to go and strike. Oh, I'll get into trouble, and the brain starts to provide the answers by the mixing of emotion. The brain starts to integrate, and the brain integrates most fully through. The brain integrates, so it starts to communicate and network 5 to 7 years of age, or 7 to 9 for more sensitive kids. And that process, they're tracking the myelination and the renovation of the brain up to 20, 23, 21 is still really quite active in terms of organization of the brain. So they're immature. They can't handle the load. It's overwhelming and it needs to come out. Blah. And even when you have brain integration, a prefrontal cortex that can handle the mixing of feelings and thoughts, is there any one of us that hasn't lost our mix? Is there any one of us that hasn't been on temper? Why did I say that? I know better. And that just came out of my mouth on top of that person. I was unfiltered. I didn't think twice. I spoke from my emotion instead of my thinking. And you realize, right? I was with teaching the other day, and I was with an elder Linda. And she said the longest journey is from the head to the heart, and just that connection, that tempering, to speak from that place where things are dialed in together. Kids under the age of 5 to 7, that's not even connected in their brains. So
that's exactly it, right? And even though our brains are there as parents are developed, what do I do if I am too triggered by my kids' big emotions? It does happen. We as adults, even though we can integrate it, don't always do it. What should we do?
Yeah, well, if you get that sense, oftentimes, I think being aware that we are immature is really helpful. And the more mature you think you are, and the more immature you realize you actually really are. Because maturity actually really helps you see your faults a lot better, and not faults, but challenges. And so I think being aware that we will be faced with limits and that we have to try to parent within our own limits. If you're highly sensitive as a parent, that's something to consider. If you're doing shift work, if you're going through a period of stress, if you've gone through your own loss, if you're trying to parent, I don't know, like in a pandemic, you might think, oh, I think my emotional system might be a little taxed right now. The thing about parents, and this is incredible, is that when you are in the position of taking care of somebody else, you actually don't feel your vulnerable feelings as much, because you're in a caretaking mode. If you're truly in that mode where you feel you are the answer to another person's life and well-being, your emotions will get muted, because that's nature's way of ensuring survival in somebody else, is to make sure your focus is on them. So you take care of your kids. And then your husband or whoever comes home and they haven't taken out the garbage. And all of a sudden you're like, why did I marry you? Like, you don't even take out garbage. And he's like, is this really
What's
about
wrong
garbage?
with you?
And you're like, I'm not sure this is about garbage. Hold on a second. I have to have a conversation with myself. I literally got mad with my husband. He built me a raised bed to put like vegetables in when over the pandemic. And then he had the audacity to suggest that I grow potatoes in that garden. I was like, excuse me. I'm just like, whoa, I don't think this is about potatoes. I have to go talk to myself. Like, I need to figure out. Because as parents, like, you think you're doing so well because you're taking care of your kids, but realize that there's a whole emotional current, underneath the iceberg. There's a lot of water and there's a lot of current. There's a lot going on. So take yourself to your places where you have an end of the day, or places in your day where you can gather yourself, you can reflect, you can just touch a little bit about how you're feeling. Remember that when your children's emotions are activated, they're going to activate yours. Try not to act from that unfiltered place. Hold on to your feelings. It's okay that you have them. Don't feel like you're the most horrible, rotten parent. Your child's so unlucky to have you because you've all of a sudden don't like something about this whole experience. Like, my goodness, don't try to make it, cut it out of you. You can't expect that from your child. Don't expect it from you. Our job is not to stop feeling. It's just not to act from a place of putting unfiltered emotions onto them. So take yourself to your places where you have play, where you have your tears, where you can have some reflection. At the end of the day, try to gather your feelings if you can. It's really important for us too, because otherwise they build up and someone's going to get the end of that. And it may be our children, the last people that can handle it, or that we often want to put it on. So it's emotional self-care for us, so that we can be able to take care of our kids. But is it going to trigger you? Yes. Don't have kids if you don't want to be emotionally triggered. My goodness, they reveal exactly where you're immature.
Mm-hmm. There, that button, right?
Somehow they just seem to find it.
I mean, they're mini you usually. So
Yes,
you
I
see
know, right?
yourself in the
Well, who knows? It's not hard. Like, I realized after many years of working in this area and research around attachment and development that we would not survive without grace and mercy and forgiveness. And I'm not talking about any kind of particular religious definition of that, but just the idea of grace, that we are imperfect, forgiveness when we blow it, and caring enough about the other person to hang in there, and mercy for ourselves and others, and realize that we are imperfect. And so relationships don't work without those. We do have to do repair sometimes with our kids and our other relationships. I'm sorry I lost you. I'm sorry I lost my temper with you about the potatoes. It's not about potatoes. I'm having a hard time and this just came out, and well, that's okay. I figured it was that anyway. Yeah, you know me well enough now, don't you? Oh, okay. Grace, mercy, forgiveness. And so, we oftentimes do wash up on each other's shores in a very imperfect way. And that's what love is when someone sticks around, even when they see you at your worst. So not that we give that to our kids. We try to, show up as best as we can, but they show up poorly often because of their even greater immaturity. And so grace, mercy, and forgiveness. So be patient with yourself and your big emotions. Be glad that you have them in many ways. It means you're alive.
Well, grace, mercy, and forgiveness. Beautiful way to let you go, Deborah, and to finish this podcast. Deborah, where can we find you?
My website, MacNamara.ca, or social media. I'm on the usual business there.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you again, Deborah.
Thank you.
For everyone that is with us today, to reach us or to view all our available episodes, please visit our website at mom-talk.ca, or visit the Mom Talk YouTube channel, or all the other podcast platform. The Mom Talk show, previously called Parent Talk Podcast and Les Parents Parlent Balado, is a bilingual show, so check out our great content in both English and French. If you're an expert in the parenting world, please visit our website at mom-talk.ca, mom-talk.ca. We want to have you on the show. Come and visit us. So Mom Talks would like to say thank you to our generous sponsors, the Tri-Cities Community Television, because sometimes we have recorded some episode with them, not only on Zoom, so which is kind of a little bit different this year, and also La Société Francophone de Maillardville. If you know a mom that would benefit from watching this episode, spread the love. Please share it with her. So always remember, it's important to laugh, keep learning, cherish your village, and be true to yourself. See you soon with another great guest. From Becca, Heather, and I, Genevieve, thank you for joining us. Bye.
Bye.